Florida the world knows is made of vibrant colors and smiles under the sun. But there is a version of this state that only breathes when the city lights go out. It is a Florida of cracked concrete, rusted iron, and voices that were silenced by time, yet still echo in places where the living were never meant to tread. In this video, we will dive into the depths of 3 abandoned locations that hold secrets so disturbing that nature itself is trying to hide them. Prepare for a journey through human arrogance, medical neglect, and the melancholic end of art in ruins that defy logical explanation. We will explore the domes that the sea is devouring, the hospital where despair became palpable, and the theater where the final play never ended. These are not just empty walls, they are monuments to decay, and you are about to discover what happens when progress is left behind. Part 1. The Ghost Domes of Cape Romano. Florida is known for its white sand beaches, but in the isolated waters of Cape Romano, the horizon reveals something that defies logic and sanity. 6 concrete structures, looking like forgotten spaceships, emerge from the ocean like sentinels of a world that no longer exists. Many tourists who navigate these waters feel an inexplicable chill as they pass through the shadow of these disfigured domes covered in barnacles. There are no signs of life, only the hollow sound of waves colliding against the support columns that once held an inventor's dream. Built in 1980 by Bob Lee, these houses were designed to be self-sustaining and resistant to the most violent hurricanes on the coast. Lee believed he had found the formula for ultimate survival, creating domes that could efficiently collect rainwater. Over the decades, what was once a luxurious beachfront residence became an isolated island, surrounded by waters that rose without asking for permission. Hurricane Andrew in 1992 was the first brutal blow, turning the interior of the domes into ruins. Have you ever stopped to think that the videos you just watched, with flawless scripts and engaging narrations, might have been created by someone who never even touched a camera or a microphone? There is a new digital elite profiting heavily behind the scenes of YouTube and social media, building massive channels without ever showing their faces or spending thousands of dollars on equipment. While most people are frozen by the fear of being on camera, these individuals are using the hidden power of artificial intelligence to generate automated content that works and earns for them 24 hours a day. The secret to dominating this game isn't about having a famous face. It's about knowing how to command the right tools to create scripts, voices, and visuals that magnetically hold the audience's attention. I've gained access to a strategic method that reveals the exact roadmap for you to build your own invisible digital empire. Mastering AI to turn clicks into a real source of income. It is the perfect opportunity for those seeking financial and geographical freedom without having to deal with the pressure of being a public figure on the internet. Best of all, you can seize this opportunity right now for a symbolic price. The complete training is under an exclusive promotion, dropping from $97 to just $17. This is your passport to unlocking the knowledge you need to start your professional journey with AI today. Click the first link in the description to secure your spot while this discount is still active. Urban explorers who manage to row out to the domes report strange sensations of being watched from inside the glassless windows. The interior is a labyrinth of damp concrete, where the acoustics distort the sound of the waves, creating whispers that seem like human voices. The domes are sinking a few inches every year, and experts claim that they will soon disappear completely beneath the blue water mirror. They serve as a visual reminder that human arrogance is no match for the patience of the oceans surrounding Florida. The gray color of the concrete contrasts violently with the vibrant blue of the sea, creating an image that looks like a post-apocalyptic nightmare. There is no soil under the houses, only columns that now function as artificial reefs for marine life that ignores the local past. Many videos show drones flying over the site, capturing the alien geometry of these houses that seem to float over the absolute void. The aerial view reveals that the domes are tilting, as if they were tired of fighting against gravity and maritime pressure. They say that on stormy nights, inexplicable lights can be seen flashing inside the structures, even though there has been no electricity there for decades. Local fishermen avoid anchoring near the ruins after sunset, citing interference with their radios and an oppressive feeling. The desolate beauty of this place lies in its forced transition from a home to a monument to human failure in the face of immense elements. Each crack in the concrete tells the story of a lost battle against the wind, the salt, and the deep loneliness of a vanished island. The geographical isolation of Cape Romano transformed these ruins into a sanctuary for the strange, attracting those who seek what remains of the impossible. There are no roads leading here, only the uncertain path through the Gulf of Mexico, where the currents are treacherous. Bob Lee's structure was visionary for its time, but Florida's sandy soil proved to be a treacherous foundation for such great ambition. What was supposed to last for centuries began to crumble in just a few years as the sea level reclaimed the beach sand. On foggy mornings, the domes seemed to float in the air, as if they were mirages of an ancient civilization that tried to colonize the American coast. It is a setting that inspires fear and admiration, forcing the viewer to reflect on the fragility of our own homes and dreams. The internal structure was corroded by saltpeter, leaving the steel exposed like the ribs of a giant creature that died on the edge of the beach. The noise of the waves inside the domes creates a resonance that many describe as a continuous and disturbing metallic cry. There are reports that Bob Lee refused to believe in the destruction of his project, visiting the site even when the waters were already hitting the doors. His fixation with the place seems to have left an energetic mark that many mediums claim to feel when touching the cold walls. The contrast between technological innovation and absolute ruin is what makes Cape Romano such a powerful landmark in world urban exploration. It is proof that the most advanced engineering can be reduced to rubble if it does not respect the limits imposed by the ecosystem. The circular windows, which once offered stunning views of the sunset, now look like the empty eyes of a concrete skull watching the horizon. Sunlight passes through the cracks in an angular way, creating shadows that move as if they were real inhabitants of the houses. The silence of the place is deceptive, as the constant movement of the tides ensures that the structures are never truly still or at complete peace. There is a constant creaking of concrete against concrete that echoes for miles in the calm of the sea, sounding like a warning. The marine animals that now inhabit the foundations do not know the history of luxury that happened above their heads in those large rooms. To them, it is just another stone cave, but to us, it is the symbol of a devastating cultural and financial defeat. With every hurricane that passes through the Florida coast, the integrity of the domes is put to the test, and debris begins to scatter across the seafloor. It is only a matter of time until the ocean completes the work it started 40 years ago, erasing the human trail. Photographers from all over the world travel to this remote point to capture the magical light of dawn reflected on the curved and worn surfaces. They seek the aesthetic of decay, visual proof that nothing we build is truly permanent or safe. The legend of Cape Romano grows as the structures disappear, fueling conspiracy theories about the true purpose of these domes. Some believe the design was not just aesthetic, but that it served to channel Earth energies at a specific point on the coast. Regardless of the truth, the vision of these abandoned houses is a shock to the system, a break in the monotony of modern, square constructions. They represent the freedom to create and the pain of losing everything to natural forces that cannot be bribed. The mold accumulated on the walls created biological patterns that look like abstract paintings, hiding the original paint that once decorated the bedrooms where there was once the smell of home-cooked food. The scent of dead seaweed and heavy salt air now prevails. There is no return for Cape Romano. The path of destruction is a one-way street, and nature has already made its final decision on the fate of the domes. They are today an involuntary art gallery, where the ocean is the artist and time is the cruelest critic of all. By observing these ruins, we realize that the border between land and sea is a constant battle line where the ocean always ends up winning. Cape Romano is just one of many casualties in this silent war taking place along the entire Florida peninsula. Many visitors report that their watches stop or that compasses become confused when they get too close to the geometric center of the dome complex. It could be the metal of the structure or something deeper, something buried in the seabed that still exerts magnetic power. Birds of prey use the top of the domes as observation posts, hunting fish in the waters that now run where the dining room once stood. It is the cycle of life overlapping the debris of civilization, transforming human failure into a resource for animal survival. The wind blowing through the cracks creates a sad music, a melody in minor keys that seems to mourn the end of a golden era. Anyone who hears this song of the wind never forgets the feeling of helplessness that the place emanates from all its angles. The domes are undoubtedly one of the most photographed and least understood places in Florida, a concrete enigma surrounded by deep blue waters. They remain there, defying gravity for one more day, while waiting for the next big hurricane to take them into the abyss. Bob Lee's story and his houses are a warning to all visionaries who believe they can tame the coast with bricks and cement. The earth is mobile, the sea is voracious, and human memory is too short to remember everyone who tried the same before him. If you close your eyes while near the domes, you can almost hear the laughter of the Lee family during the hot summers of the 1980s. But when you open them, you will only see the gray, cold skeleton of a dream that sank before the century officially ended. The ruins of Cape Romano are a prelude to a future where many of our coastal cities may face the same fate in the face of rising seas. It is a laboratory of the end of the world, operating in real time before our eyes, without us being able to do anything to stop it. In this part of our journey, we leave the Gulf waters behind, taking with us the image of those concrete spheres that refuse to fall. They continue their silent vigil, slowly sinking, serving as the first stop on our map of abandonment and fear. The sun sets behind the domes, creating silhouettes that look like sea monsters emerging to breathe one last time before the deep night arrives. The mystery of Cape Romano remains untouched, guarded by the waves and the loneliness of Florida's unforgiving waters. The Sunland Psychiatric Hospital in the heart of sunny Florida, there is a place where the screams of the past have been muffled by concrete walls and rusted iron gates. The Sunland Training Center in Tallahassee was opened to care for people, but it soon became a stage for horrors. Those who walk the grounds of Sunland feel the weight of a collective tragedy that permeates the damp soil and the ruins of the abandoned dormitories. The hospital was the scene of severe allegations of abuse and inhuman conditions that led to its forced closure in the 80s. Explorers who venture inside the medical wings report that the air is heavy, laden with the smell of mold and old corrosive chemicals. Abandoned wheelchairs and rusted stretchers are scattered throughout the rooms, as if patients were evacuated in a hurry. Many claim that Sunland is one of the most haunted places in Florida due to the high rate of deaths from neglect and internal disease outbreaks. Stories of shadows running through corridors and whispers in empty rooms are common among those seeking a nightly adrenaline rush. The hospital morgue is the most terrifying point on the property, maintaining an inexplicably low temperature even at the height of the Florida summer. The metal drawers where bodies were kept remain open, serving as a visual reminder of daily mortality. Reports of floating lights in the upper windows of the administrative building have been documented by guards who tried to keep the site isolated for many years. Some believe the souls of those who died without a name or family remain trapped there seeking eternal justice. The partial destruction of the complex did not erase the memories. It only buried them under rubble of bricks and exposed electrical wiring that glows under the moon. The trees around the ruins look twisted, as if they absorbed the pain emanating from the gray, cold buildings. In the silence of the early morning, they say it is possible to hear the metallic sound of medicine trays being dragged by invisible nurses on their rounds. It is a labyrinth of human suffering that time has transformed into an urban legend feared by all residents of Tallahassee. Paranormal investigation videos at Sunland accumulate millions of views, showing audio recordings with voices asking for help in desperate tones. Modern technology captures what our senses try to ignore. The veil between life and death is very thin within these walls. Every graffiti on the inner walls seems like a desperate attempt by the living to mark their presence in a place that belongs entirely to shadows. Tall grass hides secret entrances and holes in the floor that lead to flooded basements, where darkness is always absolute. Sunland is not just an abandoned building. It is an open wound on Florida's conscience, a monument to what happens when human care vanishes. The demolition of much of the complex brought peace to some, but the fragments that remain continue to attract the brave. They say the service tunnels, used to transport supplies and bodies, are the places where paranormal activity reaches its most violent peak. The air down there is scarce, and many report the feeling of invisible hands touching their shoulders or pulling their clothes in the dark. The medical records that remained, now stained by rain, reveal the names of people who were forgotten by society and left to die in isolation. Reading these documents in the ruins of Sunland is like hearing a cry for help that arrives 40 years late. The hospital's architecture, with its long symmetrical corridors, was designed for control, but today it only serves to confuse whoever enters. It is easy to lose your sense of direction inside the complex, especially when doors seem to change place in the corner of your eye. The cafeteria, where hundreds of people gathered daily, is now an empty hall where the sound of footsteps echoes with a sharpness that frightens the explorer. Scraps of cutlery and plastic plates can be found under the rubble, marks of an institutionalized routine that ended in chaos. There is a specific wing for children that is cited as the saddest place in the entire state, where broken toys still lie on the dusty floor. The sight of a moldy teddy bear in a dark corner of Sunland is enough to make even the most experienced explorer give up. The peeling walls reveal layers of light green paint, a color that was supposed to be calming but under flashlight beams looks sickly and decayed. The hospital's aesthetic is that of a clinical nightmare, where every detail was thought of for efficiency and none for the comfort of the soul. Many former employees refuse to talk about what they saw inside Sunland, maintaining a pact of silence that only increases the mystery of the place. Those who do speak describe a lack of resources so extreme that patients were left on metal beds without mattresses for days. The electricity was cut decades ago, but the control panels and switches are still on the walls, covered in spider webs and rust. Some explorers swear they heard the hum of fluorescent lamps upon entering certain rooms, even without any source of power. The internal courtyard, where patients had their rare moments outdoors, is now a jungle of vines that are strangling the barbed wire fences. Nature is trying to erase Sunland, but the concrete structure is too resilient to be brought down by plants and rain alone. The legend of the man in white is famous among local teenagers, who say a ghost doctor still tries to perform surgeries on intruders. It is a classic horror story that finds its foundation in the real fear of a place that abused the power it had over the vulnerable. Every floor of the main building seems to have a different personality, with some being just sad and others emanating an active, dangerous malice. The 5th floor is avoided by almost everyone, as it is where the air seems to vibrate with a frequency that causes immediate nausea. The emergency stairwells are full of trash and debris, making escaping the building a difficult task if something scary actually happens inside. The feeling of being trapped is a constant, as if the building itself were trying to digest whoever dares to enter its womb. Countless crosses have been painted on the doors by people who believe the site is infested with demonic energies attracted by human suffering. For many, Sunland is not just haunted by ghosts but has become a portal for much worse things that feed on residual pain. The sound of the wind blowing through the ventilation ducts creates long moans that can be heard outside the abandoned property gates. It is a constant lament that serves as the soundtrack for the decay of one of the greatest administrative and human errors in Florida history. Many true crime investigators visit Sunland to try and map the abuses that occurred, seeking proof amidst the rubble and neglect. What they find is evidence of an era where mental health was treated with chains and isolation instead of therapy and love. The hospital is surrounded by an aura of secrecy that the local government seems to want to maintain, avoiding revitalization projects. Sunland is a stain that no one knows how to clean, so the solution has been to let it rot under the Florida sun until it falls. At sunset, the shadows of Sunland's towers stretch like long fingers over the nearby road, warning drivers not to look back. The vision of the building against the orange sky is of a terrible beauty, an image that remains etched in the mind of those who witness it. There are no flowers in Sunland's gardens, only weeds and thorns that protect the entrance to the ruins like cursed treasure guardians. It is the end of the road for many who were sent here and were never seen by the outside world again during their suffering lives. Exploring Sunland requires courage, but also a deep respect for the victims who suffered within its walls of concrete and silent despair. It is not a place for games, but a place of perpetual mourning that society prefers to pretend never existed in its history. The echoes of Sunland will continue to vibrate as long as there is a wall standing to reflect the sound of the pain inflicted on that ground. It is a bitter lesson about power and the lack of empathy, written in bricks and cement that refuse to turn completely into dust. Whoever leaves Sunland usually feels an immediate need for silence and light, trying to clear the mind of the dense darkness found inside. It is a transformative experience that changes how we see care institutions and the treatment of the human mind in the world. The Tallahassee ruins remain there, a giant skeleton that watches the city's growth around it with a ghoulish, icy indifference. Sunland is the past that does not want to die, and the future we all fear when compassion disappears from our social lives. In this second part, we confronted the worst of humanity, leaving Sunland's corridors behind to seek something different in our final stop. The darkness still accompanies us, but the setting will change drastically from a medical wing to a stage of past and now somber glories. We close the doors of Sunland with a shiver, knowing that the voices we heard inside will continue to cry out for attention in the void. The abandoned psychiatric hospital is proof that terror does not need monsters, only men who have forgotten how to feel. The Splendid Theater and the abandonment of art hidden in the quieter streets of a small Florida town. The Splendid Theater lies in a state of decay that is both beautiful and terrifying. What was once the epicenter of entertainment is now a vast hall where only dust dances under the dim, fading light. The torn seats face an empty stage, waiting for a performance that ended over 50 years ago on a cold, silent night. The theater's ceiling, adorned with frescoes that are now peeling, seems to be on the verge of collapsing over the remnants of past glory. Florida's humidity has penetrated the stage wood, creating a smell of sweet rot mixed with the scent of old sheet music scattered about. There is an atmosphere of deep melancholy here, as if the walls still resonate with the songs and dramas performed long ago. Many urban explorers report seeing silhouettes sitting in the front row seats, vanishing as soon as a flashlight beam hits them directly. They say the former theater owner never left his observation post, watching the stage and protecting the memories. The theater's backstage is a labyrinth of moldy costumes and broken mirrors that reflect only the void and the cruel passage of decades. The sound of footsteps climbing the creaking wooden stairs is a constant for those who dare to go to the main dressing room today. It is a place where the line between performance and reality has become blurred, and where applause has been replaced by the wind whistling through cracks. The stage lights, now mere carcasses of metal and glass, seem to glow faintly on full moon nights, lighting the floating dust. It is a ghostly vision that attracts photographers in search of the perfect aesthetic of abandonment and artistic ruin on American soil. The Splendid is a testament to what happens when culture is left behind, being consumed by time and the indifference of the modern world. Local legends say a young actress died tragically during the opening night of an important play and that her voice can still be heard. Anyone standing in absolute silence in the center of the stage can hear distant piano notes coming from somewhere below the floorboards. It is a symphony of ghosts, an opera of shadows that continues to be performed for an audience that no longer possesses a body or voice. The theater's facade is covered in ivy and graffiti, but the structure still maintains an aristocratic elegance that refuses to submit. Entering the Splendid is like traveling back to an era of glamour and tragedy, where every object left behind tells a story of ambition. It is a place that demands respect and silence, for the energy contained there is fragile and loaded with the nostalgia that hurts to feel. Drone videos show the collapsed roof, revealing the scale of destruction that the lack of maintenance caused to one of the most beautiful monuments. The sight of seats covered in moss is one of the most iconic images of urban exploration in Florida, symbolizing the golden end. Every dark corner of the theater seems to hide a secret, a whispered conversation, or a fragment of a script that was never finished by the authors. The darkness there is not empty. It is filled with presences that seem to wait for the director's signal for the light to turn on. The projection booth still holds film reels that were never returned, now transformed into a sticky mass of decomposing celluloid. Looking through the small projection slit into the empty theater is to feel the loneliness of a cinema that lost its voice and its image. The orchestra pit is full of rainwater and debris, but some swear that ghost instruments still play there during the silent early morning hours. It is the sound of a culture that refuses to be buried, a melodic protest against progress that ignores the value of classical art. The velvet curtains, which once glowed in a vibrant red, now hang like gray rags, heavy with dirt and the implacable passage of time. They frame the stage as if they were ready to reveal a terrible secret at any moment to whoever has the courage to watch. There are reports that the theater was built over an ancient cemetery, which would explain the density of paranormal activity reported by visitors. If true, the Splendid is not just a theater, but a luxurious mausoleum where life and death dance together forever. The ticket office still has some tickets dated in 1965, the last year the theater functioned in an official capacity. Those pieces of paper are the last relics of an ordinary night that turned into the beginning of an eternal oblivion for the Splendid. The marble staircases, though cracked, still demonstrate the wealth of those who invested in that architectural dream in Central Florida. Every step on the marble echoes like a shot inside the empty hall, breaking the silence that the theater tries to maintain so forcefully. The main chandelier, which once illuminated the jewels of society ladies, now lies on the floor in thousands of crystal pieces that shine like stars. It is the definitive image of the fall of an entertainment empire, transformed into shiny trash under cold modern light. Many town residents avoid walking on the Splendid sidewalk, claiming that the theater sucks the joy from whoever looks too long at its doors. There is a local superstition that the theater is waiting for a new artistic sacrifice so that its doors will open once again. The dressing rooms still have names of famous actors from the era, written on metal plates that rust is trying to erase without much success. To enter there is to smell the cheap perfume and the sweat of people who lived for the stage and are now just names and records. The theater's acoustics were so well designed that even a whisper backstage can be heard clearly in the back rows of the upper balcony. This makes exploring the site even scarier, as any false move seems to be amplified 10 times by the building itself. The Splendid's basements are frequently flooded, creating a cave-like environment where the sound of dripping water sounds like an eternal metronome. It is there that the building's deepest secrets are kept, protected by mud and total darkness that no flashlight can beat. Some explorers claim to have found occult rituals performed in the center of the stage, using residual energy for dark and unknown purposes. The Splendid attracts all kinds of people, from history lovers to those seeking connections with the darkest of the dark. The beauty of the ruin is what keeps the Splendid alive in the minds of photographers, who see in destruction a new form of involuntary expression. The theater has become its own play, a tragedy in 3 acts called Oblivion, which continues to be performed daily. There are no restoration plans, as the cost would be greater than building a new building, leaving the Splendid in a legal and architectural limbo. It is a burden for the city, but a treasure for those who know how to read the marks of time on worn, dust-covered surfaces. As the walls lean inward, the theater seems to be hugging itself in a final gesture of self-destruction to protect what remains inside. It is a slow agony that could last a few more decades, or end tomorrow with a catastrophic collapse during a summer storm. The splendid stage saw the birth of many careers and, probably, the melancholic end of many others that never reached the desired fame. It is a place of frustrated dreams, where the energy of unrealized ambition floats like an invisible cold mist over empty seats. If the splendid walls could talk, they would tell stories of forbidden love in the balconies and betrayals planned in the dark, damp backstage. But they only watch in silence, guarding their secrets while waiting for the inevitable end that time reserves for all human works. The splendid story ends as it began, with a deep silence that precedes the entry of the first actor or the fall of the last wooden beam. The spectacle of abandonment is the only attraction available now, and the ticket is the courage to face what the past left behind. We leave the theater now, going out into the street light and feeling the warm Florida air hug us again, far from the coldness of artistic ruins. The splendid stays behind, a broken jewel the world forgot to fix and that now belongs only to the ghosts of the audience. We hope you survived this journey through the darkest and most abandoned places in Florida, where the past refuses to die in total silence. If you felt the chill of these stories and want to see more real explorations like these, your support is vital for us to continue. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below which of these 3 places you would never have the courage to visit alone at night. Your participation helps keep alive the memories that time tries to erase and encourages us to seek the next mystery.